Okay, so work solutions for the Unit 2 topic test. Okay, question 1. I've already got, look at 6 and 10, and the highest common factor is 2. I've then got an A in both of them, so I take that out, and then I look 2 times 3 gives me 6. I've already got the A in, and then I need a B to make it the same as 6AB. 2 times 5 gives me 10. I've already got the A in, so I need the C in to finish off. Right, expand and simplify. The most common mistake here is most people just do the first 2 things and the last 2 things. But you remember you've got 4 different elements that you need to look at, so you should start off with having 4 different things. So x times x gives me x squared. X times plus 7 gives me plus 7x. Minus 5 times x gives me minus 5x. And minus 5 times plus 7 gives me minus 35. I then can collect like terms, which are the x squareds, if you look at them. So I end up with x squared plus 7x minus 5x gives me overall 2x minus 35. Okay, next question, simplify. Okay, now looking at the numbers first, there's nothing that I can simplify with 2. There's no factor on the bottom, so I'm still going to need 2 on the top. Now, looking at my indices rules, if I look, I've got 2m squareds and 4, m to the power 2, m to the power 4 on the top and then the bottom. So actually I can cancel off 2 of those m's and I'm left with 2 on the bottom, so that's m squared. If I then look at the t's, I've got t to the 2 on the bottom and t to the 6 on the top. Remember, your indices power, if you actually divide, you end up subtracting the powers, so I should end up with t to the 4 on the top. So I end up with t to the 4, and that's as simple as it can be. Next one, factorise y squared minus 16. This is a special case. This is y squared plus no x's minus 16. It's called a difference of 2 squares. If you can spot it and learn it, basically you've got y squared and the square root of 16 is 4 all squared. And the rule is that when you come to it, you end up with y plus 4 in one brackets and y minus 4 in the other brackets, because when you expand them, you get this 0x in there, so it's a special case. If you can spot these, you'll always get them right. So y squared minus 25 would be y plus 5, y minus 5. So that's your answer, y plus 4 and y minus 4. You have the same number but a different sign. Okay, simplify this. Right, you need to look at your indices rules, and when you've got a bracket, you multiply the powers. So this is h to the minus 6, because 2 times minus 3 is minus 6. You can also write it, you'd get the marks for that, as 1 over h to the 6, because a negative indices means 1 over that, or the reciprocal is the correct mathematical term. Okay. Right, I'm just going to change my pen colour. So, 5 female giraffes have a mean weight. That means when they were all added together and divided by 5, their weight was x. So if I need to unpick that, their total weight must have been 5x, because I added them all together and divided by 5 and I got x. So to get back to what their total weight was, it must have been 5x. The same with the giraffes. When I added all their weights together and divided by 7, I got, so their weights divided by 7, their total weights for the giraffes was equal to y. So if I want to know what their total weight is, their total weight must have been 7y. So to unpick it, their total weights must have been 5x and 7y. So now it wants a mean weight for all 12. So to find out the mean weight, I add up their total weights. Well, that's 5x for the giraffes and 7y for the male giraffe, And to work out their mean, I then divide by how many there are, and that is 12. So it's setting up the equation a little bit tricky there. Okay, expand and simplify, just like the one before. Multiply the first two terms, p squared, p times minus 4, minus 4p. Oh, sorry, I don't know where that came from. 9 times p plus 9p. 9 times minus 4p. Sorry, 9 times minus 4 minus 36. Then I can simplify. You won't get all the marks unless you do. So that is the same as p squared. 9p minus 4p is plus 5p minus 36. Okay, next question, solve. Okay, now the first thing I don't like about this is that I've got a 3 on the bottom, so it's 5w minus 8 all divided by 3 equals 4w plus 2. So what I want to do is undo that divide by 3. So I can rewrite this as 5w minus 8 equals, if I times this side by 3, all of this by 3, it will cancel that 3 out on the bottom. But I've got to multiply all the other side by 3. So I get equals 3 times 4w plus 2. And now expand that bracket. So 5w minus 8 equals 3 times 4w is 12w. 3 times 2 is plus 6. And I look, which side have I got the most w's on? Well, the right side. So I'm going to subtract 5w from this left-hand side. So I'm just left with minus 8 because I've taken 5w, but I've got to do the same to the other side. So I get minus 8 equals 7w plus 6. I just want w on the one side and everything else on the other. So I undo plus 6 by minusing 6 on both sides. So I get minus 6 minus 8 equals 7w, which gives me, I'm going up here now, minus 14 equals 7w. So minus 14 divided by 7 equals w, and w equals minus 2. 3 marks for that. Okay, just like before, this is a square number and a difference between them. So the square root of 49 is 7. So if you can spot it, it's x squared minus 7 squared. So I can write this as x plus 7, x minus 7. Lovely. Right, simplify. Now, remembering your indices law, this half on the opposite side, outside the brackets, you just multiply. But also, a half is equivalent to a square root. So you have to do it to everything, including the 9. Well, what's the square root of 9? Well, the square root of 9 is 3, so you do that first. Then, it's outside the brackets, so you can actually multiply the indices. So 8 times a half is 4, so it's x to the 4. And then 3 times a half is 3 over 2, or 1.5. It's better to write it just as 3 over 2, rather than 1.5. That's the best way to write it mathematically, okay? Because it means basically what you're going to do is you're going to square root it and then cube it, or cube it and then square root it. So it's easier to leave it in those terms. Next question, nice and straightforward, expand, multiply everything by 3, so you should have 3 times x, 3 times 2 is 6. Okay, factorise completely. Highest common factor of 12 and 18 is 6. Okay, I'm going to open my brackets. I've got an x. The only power I can take out in this one is just 1x, okay? And I've only got one y in here, but I've got a y common to both. Okay, right, looking now, 6 times 2 gives me 12. I've got 1x, but I've got 3 there, x to the power 3, so multiply it by x squared, and I've already got my y. I need my minus sign in. 6 times 3 gives me 18. I've already got my x. I've got 1y, so y times y gives me y squared. Okay, exactly the same as before. 2x times x, 2x squared. 2x times plus 4, plus 8x. Minus 3 times x, minus 3x. Minus 3 times 4, minus 12. Okay, simplify. You just need your indices laws. When you multiply, you add the powers. So 5 times 2 is always going to be 10. X to the 4 times x to the 3, I add my powers, x to the 7. Y cubed times y squared, I add my powers, y to the 5. Okay, work out the value of f when g equals minus 5 and h equals 2. So f equals 3 times minus 5 plus 7 times 2. Oops, equals minus 15 plus 14, so f equals minus 1. Factorise, nice simple one here. Highest common factor of 3 and 6 is 3, so I'm left with 3 times x, and 3 times 2 gives me 6. Expand and simplify. Okay, do the first bracket, 5y, 5 times minus 2 is minus 10. Do the second bracket, it's plus 2y, 2 times minus 3 is minus 6. Collect like terms, because it said simplify. 5y plus 2y is 7y. Minus 10 minus 6 is minus 16. Simplify, just add in the powers. So it's m to the 8 when we multiply. Simplify, when we divide, we subtract the powers. So it should just be p to the 4. These are lovely marks for you to get. Make p the subject of the formula. So I'm going to highlight the p. Right, okay. So, first of all, I want to get everything with p in on its own. So I'm going to say y plus 4 equals 3p squared, because I've added 4 to get rid of it from the other side. Then I want p on its own. So I've still got to leave it as p squared, but I'm going to get y plus 4 divided by 3 equals p squared. And then lastly, be careful, you want to square root. The opposite of squaring is square rooting. So I make sure that I've got it over the whole bit of the fraction, otherwise it's not correct, equals p. Okay, because if you just have it on the top, you're only saying that you're square rooting the y plus 4. Right, tricky one this, because I've got t's on both top and bottom. So first of all, multiply through by 4 plus t. So I get p times 4 plus t equals 3 minus 2t. That way I haven't got this nasty fraction. But I've still got t's on both sides, but I have to expand it out because I've got this p. So I get 4p plus tp equals 3 minus 2t. I want everything that's got a t in on one side and everything else on the other. So I'm going to bring them to the left-hand side. So I'm going to say tp plus 2t equals 3, and then I'm going to subtract this 4p from that side, so I have to do it to this side. So I've got everything with t's on one side and everything else on the other. Now I only want t, so I'm going to have to take this t out by factorising. So t times p plus 2 equals 3 minus 4p. And I think you can see I'm nearly there because I've got the t on its own. So I want t on its own, so it's 3 minus 4p, and I undo multiplying by p plus 2 by dividing by p plus 2, and then that's my answer. Question 8. Solve 2x plus 3 equals x minus 4. So I want everything with x on one side, everything else on the other. So 2x minus x plus 3 equals minus 4. So that gives me x plus 3 equals minus 4. But I just don't want x. I want x plus 3. I want x on its own. So I take off adding 3 by subtracting 3. So it's minus 4 minus 3. X equals minus 7. Next question, solve 4x minus 5 equals 14. So I need to expand the brackets first. So 4x minus 20 equals 14. So 4x equals 14 plus 20. Adding 20 to get rid of it from the other side. 4x equals 34. So x equals 34 divided by 4, which is 8.5 or 8.5. Right, Dan has some marbles. Let's call them D. Ellie has twice as many marbles